The autumn leaves crunched under Officer Chen's boots as he made his way across the police department's parking lot, his trusted Belgian Malinois, Rex, trotting faithfully by his side. The morning air was crisp, and their breath formed small clouds in the early light. It was just another day for the inseparable duo who had been partners in the K-9 unit for the past 4 years. Officer Chen still remembered the day Rex came into his life. The department had paired them together when Rex was just 2 years old, and from day one, there was something special about their connection. Rex wasn't just any police dog, he had an uncanny ability to read situations and an intelligence that sometimes felt almost human. Their record spoke for itself: over 50 successful drug busts, 15 missing person cases solved, and countless arrests made safer because of Rex's presence. But more than the statistics, it was the trust between them that made them one of the most effective K-9 teams in the department's history. That morning started like any other, with their usual patrol briefing in Captain Rodriguez's office. The captain's face was more serious than usual as she slid a file across her desk. "We've got a series of warehouse break-ins in the industrial district," she explained, her fingers drumming against the wooden surface. "But here's the weird part. Nothing seems to be stolen. Just signs of entry and exit." Officer Chen picked up the file, studying the photos while Rex sat alertly at his feet. The break-ins had been clean, no forced entry, no security cameras triggered, nothing out of place except for slight scuff marks on the floors. It was the kind of case that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. "Something doesn't add up," Chen muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Rex's ears perked up, as if agreeing with his partner's assessment. The captain nodded, her expression grim. "That's exactly why I want you two on this," she said. "Your instincts have never let us down, and Rex's nose might pick up what our cameras missed. Start with the latest break-in site, Warehouse 23 on Docker Street. The owner's expecting you." As they drove to the warehouse district, Chen couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something bigger than simple break-ins. Rex seemed to sense his partner's unease, occasionally nudging Chen's elbow with his nose from the specially modified back seat, a gesture that always helped calm his nerves. The warehouse district was a maze of identical-looking buildings, their metal walls reflecting the morning sun. Warehouse 23 looked no different from its neighbors, but as soon as they pulled up, Rex's behavior changed. His ears forward, body tense, Chen had seen this body language enough times to know his partner had picked up something. The warehouse owner, Mr. Zhang, was waiting for them at the entrance. He was a short man with graying hair and worried eyes, wearing a neat business suit that seemed out of place in the industrial setting. "Nothing's missing," he said before Chen could even introduce himself. "I've checked the inventory 3 times. But someone was definitely here." Chen nodded, unclipping Rex's leash. "Show me where you found the signs of entry." As Mr. Zhang led them through the warehouse, Rex immediately began his systematic search pattern, a behavior that had been refined through countless training hours and real-world experience. The warehouse was filled with rows of shelving units holding various electronic components. Everything looked orderly, almost too orderly. Chen noticed that the dust patterns on some of the boxes seemed slightly off, as if they had been recently moved and carefully replaced. Rex's behavior became more intense as they approached the back of the warehouse. His tail was straight, his movements deliberate. Chen had learned to read these subtle signs over their years together. Rex wasn't just picking up a simple scent, he was tracking something complex. Suddenly, Rex stopped at a section of the wall that looked completely ordinary. He sat down and looked up at Chen, giving his distinct alert signal. Chen knelt down, running his hands along the wall's surface. It took him a moment to notice it, a nearly invisible seam in the metal paneling. "Mr. Zhang," Chen called out, "was this section of the wall recently modified?" The warehouse owner's face showed genuine surprise. "No, this is all original construction from 15 years ago." "Why?" Chen pressed gently on the panel, and to everyone's surprise, it moved slightly. Behind it was a small cavity, and inside, they found something that made Chen's blood run cold, a sophisticated electronic device with a blinking red light. "I need to call this in," Chen said, already reaching for his radio. But before he could complete the call, Rex's demeanor changed dramatically. The dog's hackles raised, and he let out a low growl, a warning Chen had learned to take very seriously. The sound of footsteps echoed from somewhere in the warehouse. Mr. Zhang looked confused. "But I closed the warehouse for your investigation. Nobody else should be here." Chen quickly ushered Mr. Zhang behind a shelving unit and signaled Rex to hold position. Years of working together meant they could communicate almost silently. The footsteps were getting closer, and Chen could now hear multiple sets. What happened next would later be described in the official report as a series of rapid developments, but in reality, it was chaos. 3 figures in dark clothing appeared at the end of the aisle. The moment they spotted Chen, they turned to run. Rex, responding to Chen's hand signal, sprang into action, but not to pursue. Instead, he positioned himself between Chen and a 4th figure who had emerged from behind them, blocking what would have been a surprise attack. The 4th intruder had a small electronic device in his hand, similar to the one they'd found in the wall. Rex's intervention had prevented him from activating it. In the confusion, Chen managed to subdue the attacker while Rex kept the others at bay, his threatening growl echoing through the warehouse until backup arrived. When the dust settled, it turned out the warehouse break-ins were part of a sophisticated corporate espionage operation. The intruders had been planting listening devices in warehouses across the district, gathering intelligence on shipping patterns and inventory for a rival company. But that discovery was just the beginning. As Chen and Rex headed back to their patrol car that evening, neither of them could have known that this case would lead them down a path that would test their partnership in ways they never imagined. The real challenge wasn't finding the listening devices, it was understanding why they were there, and more importantly, who had authorized their placement. Rex pressed his nose against Chen's hand as they walked, a gesture that had become their private signal for, "We're in this together." Chen scratched behind his partner's ears, grateful not for the first time that he had such an extraordinary partner watching his back. What they didn't realize was that their discovery that day had set in motion a series of events that would soon force them to question everything they thought they knew about their department, their city, and even their own colleagues. The real story was just beginning, and Rex's most important test as a loyal partner was still to come. The following week was a blur of activity at the police department. The warehouse case had opened up a Pandora's box of questions, and Officer Chen found himself buried in paperwork and endless meetings. Rex, ever faithful, stayed by his side, watching the constant stream of detectives and federal agents with alert eyes. The investigation had revealed that the listening devices weren't just gathering shipping information, they were sophisticated enough to intercept encrypted police communications. This discovery sent shockwaves through the department. Someone with extensive knowledge of police protocols had to be involved. One evening, as Chen was reviewing case files at his desk, Rex suddenly lifted his head from his paws and stared intently at the office door. Moments later, Detective Walsh appeared, her face tight with concern. Chen had worked with her on several cases before, and she'd always struck him as one of the most thorough investigators in the department. "I need to show you something," she said quietly, glancing around the nearly empty office. "But not here." She nodded toward the evidence room. Rex followed them without command, his body language showing the slight tension that Chen had learned to read like a book. In the privacy of the evidence room, Walsh pulled out her tablet. "I've been going through the department's communication logs," she explained, her voice barely above a whisper. "The break-in started exactly 3 months ago. Look at this." She showed him a series of timestamp patterns that made Chen's stomach turn. The warehouse intrusions perfectly aligned with certain police patrol schedules that only someone with internal access would know. "There's more," Walsh continued. "Remember those electronic components in Mr. Zhang's warehouse? They're not just any parts. They're specialized pieces used in law enforcement surveillance equipment. The kind our department uses. Chen felt Rex press against his leg, a warm, steady presence that helped him focus. Are you saying what I think you're saying? Walsh nodded grimly. Someone in our department is involved. Someone high up enough to access restricted patrol schedules and equipment specifications. Before they could discuss further, they heard footsteps approaching. Walsh quickly pocketed her tablet as Captain Rodriguez entered the evidence room. If she was surprised to find them there, she didn't show it. Chen, good timing. I need you and Rex on a special assignment tomorrow morning. Warehouse 23 again. The feds want another sweep with Rex's expertise. The captain's tone was professional, but something about it made Rex's ears twitch forward. That night, Chen couldn't sleep. He sat on his back porch, Rex's head resting on his lap, going over everything in his mind. The dog seemed to sense his partner's unease, occasionally looking up with those intelligent eyes that seemed to say, "I've got your back." The next morning, they arrived at the warehouse early. The place looked different in the pre-dawn light, more ominous somehow. Rex's behavior changed the moment they stepped out of the car, not his usual alert working mode, but something more urgent. Chen radioed in their arrival and waited for acknowledgement. The response came through with unusual static. Rex's ears perked up at the sound, and he let out a low whine, a warning Chen had learned never to ignore. Instead of entering the warehouse immediately, Chen decided to do a perimeter check first. Rex led the way, his nose working overtime, until they reached the back of the building. There, partially hidden behind some empty crates, they found fresh tire tracks and cigarette butts, signs of recent activity that shouldn't have been there. Chen's instincts were screaming that something was wrong. He reached for his radio to call for backup, but before he could, Rex suddenly stiffened and let out a soft growl. Through the early morning mist, they saw a figure slip out of a side door of the warehouse. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. The figure spotted them and started running. Rex looked at Chen, waiting for the command to pursue, but something held Chen back. Years of working with Rex had taught him to trust his partner's instincts, and right now, everything about Rex's body language suggested this wasn't a simple chase situation. Instead of pursuing, Chen guided Rex behind their patrol car just as two more figures emerged from the warehouse. They were wearing police uniforms, but Chen didn't recognize them, and he knew every officer in their precinct. Chen quietly took photos with his phone while Rex remained perfectly still beside him, understanding the need for stealth. The fake officers loaded several boxes into an unmarked van and drove away, leaving Chen with a sinking feeling that they'd just witnessed something that was never meant to be seen. Back at the station later that morning, Chen discovered that there was no record of the captain's special assignment in the system. When he tried to access the warehouse surveillance footage from earlier, he found that the cameras had been offline for routine maintenance. Something big is happening here, buddy, Chen whispered to Rex as they sat in their patrol car during lunch break. The dog's ears twitched in response, his eyes never leaving his partner's face. And I have a feeling we're getting too close to it. That afternoon, Detective Walsh sent Chen a coded message asking to meet at the dog park, a location they'd never used before. As they waited on a bench, watching other dogs play, Rex's behavior was markedly different from his usual relaxed demeanor at the park. He remained seated at attention, his eyes scanning their surroundings continuously. Walsh arrived looking more worried than ever. The evidence from the warehouse, it's gone, she said without preamble. All of it. Every single listening device we collected, every photo, every report. Someone cleared it all out last night. And here's the kicker, the system shows no record of access. It's like the evidence never existed. Chen shared his photos from the morning, and Walsh's face grew even more serious. This goes deeper than we thought, she said, studying the images. These uniforms are real department issue, not knockoffs. And that van? It's the same model as our undercover units. As they talked, Rex suddenly stood up, his posture alert but not aggressive. A jogger had stopped nearby, seemingly taking a break, but Chen noticed how the man's eyes kept darting in their direction. Walsh noticed too. "Don't look now, but we're being watched," she murmured. "Has been since I arrived. This isn't just corporate espionage anymore, Chen. This is something much bigger." As they prepared to leave the park, Walsh passed Chen what looked like a dog treat but contained a small USB drive. "Be careful who you trust," she warned. "And watch your back." Chen looked down at Rex, who met his gaze with unwavering loyalty. In a world where it was becoming increasingly difficult to know who to trust, Chen was grateful for one absolute certainty: his partner would never let him down. What they didn't know was that their loyalty would soon be tested in ways they never imagined, and the true extent of the conspiracy was about to unfold in ways that would shake their department to its core. The USB drive Walsh had given Chen burned a hole in his pocket for 2 days before he found a secure opportunity to check its contents. He chose the early morning hours at his cousin's computer repair shop, well away from any department networks. Rex stood guard by the door, his posture indicating he was treating this like any other serious operation. The files on the drive made Chen's blood run cold. Financial records, redacted emails, and surveillance photos painted a disturbing picture. Someone had been using the department's resources to facilitate a massive technology theft operation. The warehouse break-ins weren't random. They were part of a coordinated effort to steal prototype technology from various companies, using police resources as cover. But what troubled Chen most was a series of photos showing Captain Rodriguez meeting with unknown individuals in unmarked cars during odd hours. The timestamps matched perfectly with the warehouse break-ins. Walsh had been right, this went straight to the top. As Chen drove to work that morning, Rex sitting alertly in the back, he noticed something odd. A dark SUV had been following them for the past 10 minutes, maintaining a consistent distance. Rex had noticed too, his low growl confirmed Chen's suspicions. Instead of heading straight to the station, Chen made a series of random turns through residential neighborhoods. The SUV stayed with them. Years of patrol experience kicked in as Chen executed a series of evasive maneuvers, finally losing their tail in a busy shopping center parking lot. "Good boy," Chen whispered to Rex, who remained vigilant even after they'd lost the SUV. "We need to be extra careful now." At the station, things felt different. Officers who normally greeted them warmly now seemed to avoid eye contact. Even the usual morning banter in the break room fell silent when Chen entered. Rex stayed closer than usual to his partner's leg, picking up on the subtle tension in the air. Around midday, Chen received a text from an unknown number: Storage Unit 247, Blue Harbor Facility. 3 p.m. Come alone. Answers you need. He showed the message to Rex, who sniffed the phone screen and gave a soft whine, their private signal for potential danger. Chen spent the next few hours weighing his options. It could be a trap, but it might also be their only chance to understand what they were up against. He decided to go, but not exactly alone. Rex would be his backup, as always. The Blue Harbor storage facility was a maze of identical orange doors and concrete walls. Unit 247 was in the back corner, partially hidden by a large electrical transformer. As they approached, Rex's body language shifted subtly, alert but not alarming. Chen had learned to trust these nuanced signals more than any human intuition. To their surprise, they found Detective Walsh waiting for them, looking even more stressed than before. "Sorry for the cloak and dagger," she said, quickly ushering them inside the unit. "But after what happened this morning, I had to warn you." "What happened this morning?" Chen asked, noting how Rex positioned himself between them and the door. "Internal Affairs opened an investigation into you," Walsh revealed. "They're saying you're the one behind the warehouse operation. They have documentation, security footage, even bank records showing suspicious deposits to an offshore account in your name. Chen felt like he'd been punched in the gut. That's impossible. I haven't done anything wrong. I know, Walsh said, pulling out a laptop. That's why I've been digging deeper. Look at this. She showed him a series of time-stamped photos. They showed Chen's patrol car at various warehouses during the break-ins, except Chen knew he hadn't been anywhere near those locations on those dates. Someone's gone to a lot of trouble to frame you, Walsh continued. They've been building this case for months. The question is, why you? Rex suddenly tensed, his ears forward. Seconds later, they heard vehicles pulling up outside. Through the small gap under the storage unit door, they could see multiple pairs of boots approaching. Walsh quickly handed Chen a small envelope. Whatever happens next, keep this safe. It's everything I've found, including proof that these photos were doctored. There's also a list of names, officers I trust. You'll need them. Before Chen could respond, there was a loud bang on the storage unit door. Police! Open up! What happened next was a blur of activity. Walsh quickly opened a back panel in the storage unit, revealing a maintenance corridor that ran behind the units. Go, she whispered urgently. I'll stall them. Chen hesitated for a split second, but Rex was already moving toward the escape route, looking back at his partner with clear intent. Years of working together had taught Chen to trust his partner's instincts without question. As they slipped into the narrow corridor, Chen could hear Walsh opening the main door, her voice steady as she greeted their colleagues. Rex led the way through the dimly lit passage, his paws silent on the concrete floor. They emerged on the other side of the facility, near a small employees' parking lot. Chen's phone buzzed with an alert. An all-points bulletin had just been issued for his arrest. The charges included theft, conspiracy, and misuse of police resources. His face would soon be on every police computer in the city. Looks like it's just you and me now, buddy, Chen whispered to Rex, who pressed closer to his leg in response. They needed to move fast, but they also needed a plan. The envelope Walsh had given him felt heavy in his pocket. It might contain the key to clearing his name, but first, they had to survive long enough to use it. They made their way carefully through back alleys and side streets, avoiding main roads and security cameras. Rex's heightened senses proved invaluable, alerting them to approaching vehicles or people long before Chen could detect them. The training they'd done together over the years was now being put to a very different use. As dusk approached, they found temporary shelter in an abandoned mechanic's garage Chen had once cleared in a burglary case. The place was dusty but secure, with multiple exit points, something his years of police work had taught him to always look for. While Rex kept watch, Chen finally opened Walsh's envelope. Inside, he found not only the evidence she'd mentioned but also a handwritten note: "The warehouse operation goes beyond our department. Following the money led me to connections with several high-ranking city officials. Be careful, they'll try to discredit you first, then silence you. Trust no one except those on the list. And whatever you do, keep Rex close, they don't know about his special training." Chen looked at his partner, remembering the specialized training program Rex had been part of before joining the K-9 unit. Everyone knew Rex was exceptional, but few knew the full extent of his capabilities. Now, those unique skills might be the only thing keeping them alive. As night fell, Chen realized their real challenge was just beginning. They weren't just fighting to clear his name anymore, they were fighting to expose a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of city government. And somewhere out there, the real perpetrators were probably already planning their next move. Rex settled next to Chen, his warm presence a reminder that no matter what happened next, they would face it together. Neither of them could have known that the next 24 hours would test their partnership in ways they never imagined, and that Rex's most extraordinary act of loyalty was still to come. Dawn broke over the city, painting the abandoned garage in shades of gray and amber. Chen hadn't slept much, spending most of the night studying Walsh's documents. Rex had dozed off and on, always keeping one ear alert for any unusual sounds. Their years of working night shifts together had given them both the ability to function on minimal rest. The list of trusted officers Walsh had provided included only 5 names, and Chen recognized them all as veterans who'd been with the department longer than Captain Rodriguez. One name stood out, Lieutenant Patel, his former training officer. If anyone could help them navigate this mess, it would be her. But reaching out to anyone was risky. Chen's phone was surely being tracked, and he couldn't just walk into the station to find Patel. As if reading his thoughts, Rex got up and brought him an old newspaper that had been lying in the corner of the garage. Chen smiled at his partner's intelligence. They needed to think old school. Using the burner phone Walsh had included in the envelope, Chen called in an anonymous tip about suspicious activity at one of Lieutenant Patel's regular coffee spots. It was a long shot, but he knew her habits. She always checked out tips personally when they came in during her early morning patrol. Sure enough, an hour later, they spotted Patel's unmarked car pulling into the coffee shop's parking lot. Chen watched from the shadow of a nearby alley as she did her usual perimeter check. Rex stayed perfectly still beside him, understanding the need for complete silence. When Patel passed near their hiding spot, Chen softly whistled their old training signal. She stopped, her hand instinctively moving toward her weapon, but then Rex gave a very quiet whine, a sound she would recognize from their many training sessions together. "I should have known you wouldn't go far," she said quietly, not looking directly at their hiding spot. "The whole department's looking for you." "I need 5 minutes," Chen whispered. "Please. In private." Patel nodded almost imperceptibly and walked to her car. She drove it around to the back of the building, out of sight from the street cameras. Chen and Rex slipped into her back seat, staying low. "Talk fast," she said, her eyes meeting Chen's in the rearview mirror. "And it better be good." Chen handed her Walsh's envelope. "Everything's here, the doctored photos, the fake bank records, the connection to city officials. They're framing me because Rex and I got too close to something in that warehouse case." Patel quickly scanned the documents, her expression growing darker with each page. "This goes higher than you know," she finally said. 3 months ago, I was approached about a special task force. They wanted to use K-9 units for some kind of classified operation. I turned them down. Something felt off about the whole thing. "Why didn't you tell me?" Chen asked. "I was ordered not to," she replied. "Direct orders from the commissioner himself." "But now..." She held up one of Walsh's photos. "Now I know why. They're using police resources to run a private security operation for some very powerful people. The warehouse break-ins were just a cover." Rex suddenly lifted his head, his body tensing. Seconds later, they heard police sirens in the distance. Someone must have spotted them. "You need to go," Patel said urgently. "But first..." She pulled out her personal laptop and quickly copied all of Walsh's files. "I'll start my own investigation from the inside. I still have friends in internal affairs who aren't under Rodriguez's influence." As Chen and Rex prepared to slip out of the car, Patel grabbed Chen's arm. "There's something else you should know. Yesterday, they brought in a new K-9 unit from another district. The handler, he's asking a lot of questions about Rex's training history." Chen felt a chill run down his spine. Rex had been part of an experimental training program before joining the department, a program that had been shut down for being too advanced, too specialized. Most of the documentation had been classified, but Rex's abilities had always stood out from other K-9s. "Be careful," Patel warned. "I think they're more interested in Rex than they are in you. Whatever was happening in those warehouses, they might need his special skills to track something we haven't figured out yet." They parted ways just as the sirens grew closer. Chen and Rex made their way through a series of back alleys, using the urban environment training they'd practiced so many times before. Rex's ability to detect approaching threats long before they became visible was proving invaluable. By midday, they had made their way to the industrial district's old canal system, a maze of maintenance tunnels and service corridors that ran beneath the warehouses. Chen remembered mapping these tunnels during a training exercise years ago, but what caught his attention now was how Rex's behavior changed as they went deeper into the system. The dog's nose worked overtime, and he kept leading Chen toward specific junctions with increasing urgency. This wasn't his usual tracking behavior, this was something different, something that reminded Chen of how Rex had acted in Warehouse 23. Following Rex's lead, they discovered something unexpected: fresh tire tracks in the dust of a service tunnel that should have been abandoned years ago. Rex's excitement grew as they followed the tracks to a heavy metal door that looked recently installed. Chen checked his copy of Walsh's documents and found something he'd missed before: a pattern of power usage spikes in this area, despite all the buildings above being officially vacant. Whatever was really going on, whatever had been worth framing him for, it was happening right beneath their feet. They were about to investigate further when Rex suddenly froze, his ears perked forward. In the distance, they could hear footsteps echoing through the tunnels, multiple sets, approaching from different directions. They were running out of time. But Rex wasn't moving toward any of their escape routes. Instead, he was pawing at a specific spot on the wall. Chen ran his hands over the area and felt it, another hidden panel, similar to the one they'd found in the warehouse. Inside was a small device with a blinking light, but this one was different from the listening devices they'd found before. Just then, Chen's burner phone vibrated with a message from Walsh: "Urgent, found the connection. It's not about stealing tech. They're testing something. Rex was part of Program Echo. He can detect." The message cut off abruptly, but it didn't matter. Chen was starting to put the pieces together. Rex's special training, the warehouse break-ins, the hidden devices, the power spikes. They weren't just running a theft ring, they were running unauthorized experiments. And Rex, with his unique abilities from Program Echo, was probably the only one who could expose what they were really doing. The footsteps were getting closer. Chen looked at his partner, seeing the determination in those intelligent eyes. Whatever they were about to uncover, whatever danger they were about to face, they would face it together. Rex had always been more than just a police dog. He was a guardian, a protector, and now, possibly the key to unraveling a conspiracy that went far beyond anything they'd imagined. As they prepared to make their next move, Chen realized that the real test of their partnership was just beginning. The truth they were about to uncover would change everything, not just for them, but for the entire city. And Rex's most important role in this story was about to be revealed. The underground tunnel echoed with approaching footsteps, but Chen and Rex had already found their temporary sanctuary, a maintenance room hidden behind decades of forgotten equipment. As they waited in silence, Chen's mind raced back to his first days with Rex, remembering the unusual circumstances of their partnership. 4 years ago, when Rex was first assigned to him, Chen had received a classified briefing about Program Echo. They had told him Rex was special, one of only 3 dogs who had completed the program successfully. The program had focused on developing K9 units that could detect more than just drugs or explosives. These dogs were trained to identify and track specific electronic signatures, experimental technology, and energy patterns that regular equipment couldn't detect. Now, watching Rex intently studying the strange device they'd found in the wall, everything started making sense. The warehouse break-ins weren't break-ins at all, they were tests. Someone was using the buildings to conduct unauthorized experiments with technology that shouldn't exist, and they needed Rex's unique abilities to track something. The footsteps passed their hiding spot, and Chen could hear fragments of conversation, signals getting stronger. Need to contain the resonance. Can't risk another surge. When the voices faded, Rex led them deeper into the tunnel system, moving with purpose. Chen noticed how his partner kept shaking his head slightly, as if trying to clear it, a behavior he'd only seen once before, during their first warehouse investigation. They came to a junction where 3 tunnels met. Rex sat down suddenly, his behavior shifting into what Chen recognized as his detection pose. But something was different. Instead of focusing on a specific point, Rex kept looking between all 3 tunnels, then back at Chen, as if trying to communicate something crucial. Chen pulled out Walsh's files again, this time focusing on the power surge data. The patterns formed a triangle when mapped onto the tunnel system, and they were standing right in the center of it. His burner phone buzzed again, another message from Walsh: found program echo files. The dogs weren't just tracking tech, they were protecting their handlers from its effects. Get out of the tunnels. The resonance patterns can. Again, the message cut off, but this time, Chen noticed Rex's increasing agitation. The dog's ears were twitching, and he kept pressing against Chen's leg, trying to push him back the way they had come. Suddenly, a low hum filled the air, building in intensity. The device they'd found earlier started blinking faster. Rex barked, not his usual alert bark, but a sound of genuine alarm. Without hesitation, Chen followed as Rex practically dragged him away from the junction. They had barely made it 30 feet when a wave of dizziness hit Chen. The world seemed to tilt sideways, and his vision blurred. But Rex stayed pressed against him, steering him forward, and gradually the symptoms subsided. They emerged into a different section of the tunnel system just as Chen's phone lit up with one final message from Walsh: they're using the resonance tech to disorient and incapacitate. That's why they need Rex. Echo dogs can detect and counter the effects. But prolonged exposure. The message ended there, but Chen was beginning to understand. The warehouse break-ins, the hidden devices, the power surges, it was all part of testing some kind of new technology. And Rex, thanks to his program Echo training, could not only detect it but somehow protect others from its effects. That's why they're after us, Chen whispered to Rex, who was still watching him with concern. You're not just detecting their experiments, you're a threat to them because you can counter what they're doing. Their moment of realization was interrupted by a new sound, the heavy clang of security doors being activated throughout the tunnel system. Someone was trying to trap them down here. Chen pulled out the tunnel maintenance maps he'd photographed earlier, looking for an escape route. But Rex was already moving, leading him toward what looked like a dead end. Chen trusted his partner without question, following as Rex nosed aside some old crates to reveal a maintenance shaft. As they climbed the narrow shaft, Chen could hear voices echoing through the tunnel system below. One voice stood out: Captain Rodriguez, find them. The Echo Dog is the priority. Without him, Chen has no protection against the resonance fields. They emerged in an abandoned subway maintenance room. Through a ventilation grate, Chen could see they were near the old City Hall station, right in the heart of the government district. Rex's special training had led them right to the source. Chen checked his phone one last time, hoping for more information from Walsh, but instead found a news alert: Detective Walsh had been involved in a single-car accident an hour ago. She was in critical condition at City General Hospital. The timing wasn't a coincidence. Walsh had gotten too close to the truth, just like they had. But she had managed to give them enough information to start putting the pieces together. Looking at the city plans in Walsh's files, Chen noticed something significant. The triangle formed by the power surges centered exactly on City Hall. Whatever experiments they were conducting, whatever this resonance technology was meant to do, it was all connected to something happening right above their heads. Rex suddenly tensed, his nose working overtime. Through the ventilation system, they could hear fragments of a conversation from an office above. The demonstration for the foreign buyers is in 2 days. We need that Echo Dog contained before then. The resonance fields are ready, but without a way to protect against them. What about the handler? Chen. He's already been discredited. Once we have the dog, he won't be a problem. Rex growled softly, pressing closer to Chen. The bond between them had always been strong, but now Chen understood it went even deeper. Rex hadn't just been trained to detect threats, he'd been trained to protect his handler from a technology that could incapacitate anyone in its range. They needed to find proof of what was happening and get it to Lieutenant Patel. But first, they had to survive the next 48 hours. Someone was planning to sell this dangerous technology, and Rex was the only thing standing in their way. Chen looked at his partner, seeing not just a highly trained police dog, but a guardian who had been protecting him all along without him even knowing it. Whatever came next, they would face it together. As if understanding his thoughts, Rex nuzzled Chen's hand, their private signal for, "I've got your back." They had uncovered the truth about Program Echo and the resonance technology, but their greatest challenge still lay ahead. In less than 2 days, they would need to stop an illegal weapons sale and expose a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of city government. And somewhere above them, in the halls of City Hall, their enemies were preparing for a demonstration that could change the balance of power in ways nobody was prepared for. The clock was ticking, and Rex's most crucial test as both protector and partner was about to begin. The next 24 hours tested Chen and Rex's partnership in ways they never imagined. They moved carefully through the city's forgotten spaces, abandoned buildings, old storm drains, and maintenance corridors, always staying one step ahead of their pursuers. Rex's heightened senses and Program Echo training proved invaluable, warning them whenever they got too close to another resonance device. Chen had managed to get a secure message to Lieutenant Patel through one of the trusted officers on Walsh's list. The response was concerning. Walsh was still unconscious but stable, and Patel had discovered that several high-ranking city officials had cleared their schedules for a private technology demonstration the following evening. They needed evidence, concrete proof of what was happening. But more importantly, they needed to stop the demonstration. If this technology was sold, there would be no way to contain it. Around midnight, they found temporary shelter in an old newspaper distribution warehouse. While Rex kept watch, Chen reviewed everything they knew, spreading Walsh's documents across a dusty desk. The power surge patterns, the timing of the warehouse break-ins, the locations of the resonance devices, it all pointed to a systematic testing program that had been going on for months. But there was something else nagging at Chen's mind. He pulled out the original photos from Warehouse 23, studying them again. The electronic components they'd found weren't just random parts, they were pieces of something bigger. Rex suddenly perked up, trotting over to one of the photos and pawing at it gently. Chen looked closer at what had caught his partner's attention. In the background of the image, barely visible, was a shipping manifest with a company logo he recognized, Global Dynamics Solutions. "That's it, buddy," Chen whispered, quickly searching through Walsh's files. "That's what we've been missing." Global Dynamics Solutions was a front company that appeared in several of the financial documents. They had been receiving regular shipments at Warehouse 23, but according to official records, the company didn't exist before 6 months ago. Chen's burner phone buzzed with a message from Patel, "Demo location confirmed. City Hall Underground Conference Center. Heavy security already in place. Buyers arriving at 7 p.m. tomorrow." They had less than 18 hours to stop a weapons demonstration in one of the most secure buildings in the city. Chen looked at Rex, who met his gaze with steady determination. They needed a plan. Using the maintenance maps they'd photographed earlier, Chen identified several possible entry points to the underground conference center. But Rex's reaction to each suggestion told him something crucial: the resonance field coverage was too strong. They'd never make it through without being incapacitated. Then Rex did something unexpected. He went to the desk and carefully picked up one of the small devices they'd collected from the tunnels. His behavior wasn't his usual alert pose, this was different. He placed the device on the floor and then walked in a circle around it, maintaining the exact same distance as he moved. Chen watched, understanding dawning. "The safe zone," he whispered. "You can detect where the field is weakest." Rex barked softly in confirmation. All those times in the tunnels when Rex had pushed him in certain directions, he hadn't just been leading them away from danger, he had been guiding them through safe corridors in the resonance fields. Working together through the night, they mapped out the likely coverage areas of the resonance technology. Rex's reactions to different locations on the map helped Chen identify where the main emitters must be placed. The pattern revealed something crucial: there were blind spots, areas where the fields overlapped and created null zones. As dawn approached, Chen received another message from Patel: "Walsh is awake. Says to tell you about the backup drives. Something about Program Echo and redundancy protocols." Chen's mind raced back to his original briefing about Program Echo. Every dog in the program had been trained with redundant command sets, backup protocols in case the primary systems failed. But it wasn't just about commands, there had been something about the training itself being backed up. He looked at Rex with new understanding. The Program Echo dogs hadn't just been trained to detect and navigate the resonance fields, they had been trained to disrupt them. That's why Rex was so crucial to the buyer's demonstration. Without a way to control and counter the technology, it was too dangerous to use. Just then, Rex's ears perked up. Seconds later, they heard vehicles pulling up outside. They'd stayed in one place too long. They slipped out through a loading bay just as flashlights began sweeping the warehouse interior. In the growing morning light, they made their way toward City Hall, using back alleys and service corridors. Rex guided them carefully, avoiding areas where his behavior indicated strong resonance fields were active. By mid-afternoon, they had positioned themselves in an abandoned maintenance office near the underground conference center. Through the ventilation system, they could hear the preparation activity below. Technical teams were setting up equipment, security teams were running final checks, and somewhere in all of that, the resonance technology was being prepared for its demonstration. Chen's phone lit up with one final message from Patel: "Security protocols uploaded. You'll have a 10-minute window at 6:45 p.m. when the systems reset. After that, you're on your own." Looking at his partner, Chen saw the same unwavering loyalty that had been there since day one. Rex wasn't just a police dog with special training, he was the result of a program that had created guardians, protectors who could defend against a technology that turned human nervous systems against themselves. "You've been protecting me all along," Chen said softly, scratching behind Rex's ears. "Now it's time to protect everyone." Rex's tail wagged once, his eyes never leaving Chen's face. They had one chance to stop this technology from being sold, to expose the corruption in their department, and to clear Chen's name. Success would require perfect timing, complete trust, and the unique abilities that made Rex more than just a K-9 partner. As they waited for their window of opportunity, Chen thought about everything that had led them here. The warehouse investigation, Walsh's evidence, the hidden tunnels, it had all been building to this moment. In less than 3 hours, they would have to breach one of the most secure facilities in the city, disable a dangerous weapons system, and expose a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of government. But as he looked at Rex, Chen felt a surge of confidence. They had uncovered the truth about Program Echo together, and together they would make sure that truth came to light. The next few hours would put their partnership to the ultimate test, and Rex's most extraordinary act of loyalty was about to unfold. At exactly 6:43 p.m., the underground conference center hummed with activity. Through the ventilation shaft, Chen and Rex watched as technicians made final adjustments to equipment that had been carefully hidden behind sleek corporate presentation displays. Security teams patrolled in precise patterns, while caterers set up refreshments for the potential buyers who would arrive soon. Chen spotted Captain Rodriguez speaking with a group of well-dressed individuals near the main entrance. Their polished appearances couldn't hide their military bearing, these weren't ordinary technology investors. Among them was a face Chen recognized from Walsh's files, the CEO of Global Dynamic Solutions. At 6:44 p.m., Rex's ears twitched, their signal that the resonance fields were powering down for the security system reset. Chen checked his watch, knowing they had exactly 10 minutes before the backup systems engaged. Everything they'd discovered, everything they'd fought for, came down to the next few minutes. "Ready, partner?" Chen whispered. Rex pressed against his leg in response, their private signal of absolute trust. They moved silently through the maintenance shaft, timing their descent perfectly between security sweeps. Rex guided them through the invisible safe zones he could detect, where the residual resonance fields were weakest. Years of training together made their movements perfectly synchronized. At 6:47 p.m., they reached their first objective. The main control panel for the resonance technology was hidden behind what appeared to be a standard circuit breaker box. As Chen worked to access it, Rex kept watch, his specialized senses alert for any change in the electromagnetic fields around them. Chen's hands moved quickly, following the technical specifications Walsh had uncovered. The device was sophisticated, a combination of cutting-edge technology and classified military research. But its fatal flaw was something its creators hadn't considered. It had been designed to be calibrated using the same frequencies that program Echo Dogs could detect. At 6:50 p.m., the first alarm sounded, not for them, but for an unexpected power fluctuation in the main system. Chen smiled grimly. Lieutenant Patel's distraction was right on schedule. "Security teams to Sector 4, crackled a voice over the radio. Possible system breach in the East Corridor." As security personnel moved to investigate, Chen and Rex slipped into the main conference room. The presentation area was set up like a corporate product launch, but the reality of what was being sold here was far more sinister. Screens displayed sanitized technical specifications, hiding the true nature of a weapon designed to incapacitate large groups of people without leaving a trace. They had 3 minutes left before the security systems reset. Chen began uploading Walsh's evidence to the presentation system while Rex took up position near the door, his body language shifting into what Chen now recognized as his program Echo defensive stance. At 6:53 p.m., they heard Captain Rodriguez's voice approaching. "Finest example of non-lethal crowd control technology. Once the demonstration begins." Rex's ears flattened, a warning. The residual resonance fields were getting stronger. They were about to restart the system ahead of schedule. Chen finished the upload just as the first wave hit him. The dizziness was immediate, far stronger than what they'd experienced in the tunnels. He stumbled, his vision blurring, but Rex was already there, pressing against him, using his program Echo training to create a protective barrier. The door opened. Captain Rodriguez stepped in, flanked by security personnel and the potential buyers. Her eyes widened at the sight of Chen and Rex. "How did you?" she began, but stopped as she saw the screens behind them. Walsh's evidence was playing on every display, the financial records, the illegal tests, the classified military connections, all of it building a damning case that could no longer be hidden. "It's over, Captain," Chen said, his voice steady despite the increasing resonance effects. "The truth about this technology, about Program Echo, about everything, it's already being transmitted to every news outlet in the city." Rodriguez's face hardened. "You have no idea what you're interrupting here. This technology could revolutionize crowd control, prevent riots, save lives. By turning it against innocent people?" Chen countered. "By using it to incapacitate anyone who disagrees with those in power? That's why Program Echo was shut down in the first place, because someone realized how dangerous this technology could be in the wrong hands." The CEO of Global Dynamics stepped forward, his expression calculating. "The Echo Dog, it's countering the field effects. That's what makes it so valuable. With its training, we could perfect the protective protocols." Rex growled, not aggressively, but with clear warning. Chen felt a surge of pride. Even now, his partner was protecting not just him, but the principles they'd sworn to uphold. Rex isn't a piece of technology to be exploited, Chen said firmly. He's a guardian, trained to protect people from exactly this kind of abuse of power. The resonance fields were at full strength now, and Chen could see the buyers and security team starting to feel the effects. Only those closest to Rex were unaffected, protected by whatever ability Program Echo had unlocked in dogs like him. Suddenly, the main doors burst open. Lieutenant Patel led a team of federal agents into the room, followed by news cameras and several of the trusted officers from Walsh's list. Federal Task Force. Patel announced. Everyone stay where you are. We have a warrant to seize all technology and documentation related to unauthorized weapons testing. Rodriguez reached for something in her jacket, but Rex was faster. With precise training, he positioned himself between her and Chen, his presence alone enough to make her reconsider. The next few minutes were a blur of activity. Federal agents secured the room while tech specialists began shutting down the resonance equipment. The buyers were detained, their diplomatic immunity useless in the face of international weapons treaties. Chen watched as Rodriguez and the Global Dynamics executives were led away in handcuffs. The captain's final glare held both anger and a grudging respect. She had never anticipated that a K-9 unit could be the key to unraveling her entire operation. Lieutenant Patel approached them, smiling. Walsh is going to be sorry she missed this. She's already giving statements to federal investigators from her hospital room. Her evidence, combined with what you've uncovered here, it's over, Chen. You've been cleared of all charges. Chen knelt beside Rex, who was still maintaining his protective position despite the resonance fields being powered down. We did it, buddy, he said softly, scratching his partner's favorite spot behind his ears. You can stand down now. We're safe. Rex relaxed slightly but stayed close to Chen. After everything they'd been through, their bond was stronger than ever. They had faced corruption, advanced technology, and seemingly impossible odds, but their partnership had proven more powerful than any weapon. As they walked out of the underground conference center together, Chen realized that while the immediate danger was over, their story was far from finished. Rex's unique abilities and the truth about Program Echo would raise new questions, create new challenges. But looking at his partner, Chen knew they would face whatever came next the same way they had faced everything else, together. Rex wasn't just a highly trained K-9, or even just a Program Echo success story. He was a guardian, a protector, and above all, a loyal friend who had defied all odds to save not just his partner, but the very principles of justice they had sworn to protect. 2 weeks after the dramatic events at City Hall, Chen sat at his desk in the police department, Rex lounging contentedly at his feet. The morning sun streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow over the numerous newspaper clippings that now decorated the bulletin board, headlines about corruption exposed, dangerous technology seized, and a K-9 unit that had helped uncover it all. Detective Walsh had been released from the hospital yesterday, her recovery progressing well. She'd stopped by this morning, walking with a slight limp but her spirit undiminished, to share some news about the ongoing investigation. The Federal Task Force has traced the resonance technology back to its source, she explained, sharing a knowing look with Lieutenant Patel, who had joined them. Turns out Program Echo wasn't shut down because it failed, it was shut down because someone realized the dogs could counter this technology. Some very powerful people wanted that kept quiet. Chen nodded, reaching down to scratch Rex's ears. The past 2 weeks had been a whirlwind of federal investigations, depositions, and revelations. Captain Rodriguez and several high-ranking city officials were facing multiple charges. The Global Dynamics executives had turned on each other, each trying to cut a deal, revealing a conspiracy that stretched back years. But what interested Chen most was the new information about Program Echo. The training program hadn't just been about creating better police dogs, it had been about developing natural countermeasures to the resonance technology. The dog's ability to detect and disrupt the fields wasn't an accident, it was their most important purpose. The really interesting part, Patel added, is what they found in the classified files. The resonance technology was never meant for crowd control, that was just a cover story. Its real purpose was far more insidious. They were developing a way to incapacitate security systems, disable protective measures, make any facility vulnerable without leaving a trace. And Rex could sense it all along, Chen said proudly. His partner's tail thumped against the floor at the mention of his name. Every time we went near those warehouses, every strange reaction, he was trying to warn us. Walsh smiled. Not just warn you, protect you. The program Echo dogs were specifically trained to shield their handlers from the effects. That's why they were so careful in selecting which dogs made it through the program. It wasn't just about ability, it was about loyalty, about the bond between dog and handler. Chen thought back to all the times Rex had pressed against him in the tunnels, guided him away from danger, stood between him and the invisible threat of the resonance fields. His partner hadn't just been following training, he'd been fulfilling his deepest purpose as a protector. The office door opened, and Chief Richardson entered, the department's new leader, brought in to help rebuild after the scandal. She was carrying a formal-looking document. Officer Chen, Rex, she greeted them warmly. I have something here you might be interested in. The Federal Task Force has officially requested that you two lead a new training initiative. They want to restart Program Echo, the right way this time, focusing on the dog's protective abilities rather than the technology they were meant to counter. Rex's ears perked up, and Chen felt a surge of pride. Their experience could help train a new generation of K9 units, ensuring that the special abilities of dogs like Rex would be used to protect people, not control them. There's more, the chief continued. The mayor wants to present you both with a commendation next week. The ceremony will be public. He thinks people need to hear this story, need to know how one partnership helped expose a conspiracy that could have affected thousands of lives. Chen looked down at Rex, who met his gaze with those intelligent, loyal eyes. What do you think, buddy? Ready to help train some new recruits? Rex's tail wagged once, decisively. He'd already moved closer to Chen's side, his customary position when accepting a new assignment. Later that afternoon, Chen and Rex walked through the park near the station. It was their favorite spot for breaks, a place where Rex could just be a dog for a while, playing fetch and enjoying the sunshine. But today, Chen noticed his partner was still in protection mode, occasionally scanning their surroundings, staying closer than usual. It's okay, Chen assured him softly. We're safe now. You can relax. As if understanding, Rex finally flopped down in the grass, rolling onto his back in a rare moment of complete relaxation. Chen couldn't help but laugh at the sight of his highly trained partner, one of only 3 successful Program Echo graduates, acting like a puppy in the sun. A young officer walked by with her new K9 recruit, and Rex immediately sat up, resuming his dignified demeanor. Chen smiled, recognizing the mixture of playfulness and professionalism that made his partner so special. You know, he said to Rex, when they first assigned us together, they told me you were exceptional. But I don't think anyone really understood just how exceptional you would turn out to be. Rex pressed against his leg, their old signal for absolute trust and partnership. In that moment, Chen realized that while Program Echo had given Rex his unique abilities, it was their bond that had made those abilities mean something. Together, they had not only exposed a dangerous conspiracy but had also shown what was possible when loyalty and trust overcame corruption and greed. The sun was setting as they walked back to the station, casting long shadows across the city they had helped protect. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, training programs to develop, other K9 units to mentor, and the ongoing work of rebuilding trust in the department. But for now, Chen was content knowing that he had the best partner anyone could ask for. Rex had defied all odds not just to save him, but to save the very principles they stood for. He had proven that sometimes the strongest weapon against corruption isn't technology or power, but the unshakable bond between a dog and his handler. As they reached their patrol car, Rex jumped into his specially modified back seat, the same seat where their journey had begun what felt like a lifetime ago. Chen smiled, knowing that while this chapter of their story was ending, their partnership was stronger than ever. Tomorrow would bring new adventures, new challenges, and new opportunities to make a difference. But whatever came next, they would face it the way they had faced everything else, together, as partners, guardians, and above all, friends who had discovered that loyalty and trust could overcome any obstacle, no matter how impossible it seemed.